Hello, Milanistas all around the world. Welcome to our stream. And here we have Shane in Kenya and myself, Husni, based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So it's glad for everyone to tune in and yeah, for another episode of Milanistas 360. How you doing today, Shane?
I'm good. I'm good. So interesting thing. So as you've seen, Hosni, check this out. So this is modern technology, right?
Yeah,
So if I disappear from my camera, right, you can actually see a really nice view. Yeah. Of
yeah.
course, when I come back, right, when I
You
come
brought the
back, it's
winter with
like
you.
a nuclear winter or a nuclear explosion has happened, and I'm sitting in the ashes.
Well, I wish I could do the same, but yeah,
Yeah.
my room is quite a mess, so I can't be. I don't could dare to show the background. But yeah, for those tuning in, thank you so much for yeah catching us this weekend. Yeah, we do. Do we have a show for you here today, especially recapping what's happened over the past weekend? What will happen later today? Hopefully, it'll be a great game, and we're looking forward to, of course, a win, 3 points, and hopefully, if I can, dream a little bit, also another clean sheet. So, Shane, yeah, just about the what happened last week. So last week we had the game against Torino, I think. Was it? Oh, my
Oh,
memory's starting.
Monza.
Monza, my bad. The colors were similar.
That's it.
So yeah, 1-0 win,
That's
and
it.
yeah, it looked on the face of it, it looked like we managed to get past that one without any problems because we kept a clean sheet, and well, again with the solitary goal. Yeah, what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, man. It's This is so the we myself and Hosni share a chat with shout out to Milan Weekly Podcast, great channel.
Yeah,
So in that chat, there was a guy who was very very critical of Messias. So of course no one else was going to score but Messias. So no good results. My key takeaway from that though was not yes great on paper, all good. We got a clean sheet. We won ugly for the most part. But I mean, the amount of possession that we left Manza get, that we gave to Manza, especially towards the end, right? I the whole idea of us changing formation, I thought, would have been for us to conserve energy because the formation that we use now, it's easier to be compact and tight. And yet again, though, like towards the end of that game, the amount of chances that Manza got. I mean, it's like I said to you, it's like we were playing Real Madrid and we were just, we're happy to kind of sit back and then try and break out from that. This is like, talk about giving, sorry, no offense to Manza, but giving a very average team too much respect. The, like, the, it's not good. There's ways to close out the game and just literally giving a team like Manza that can be dangerous the opportunity to come and score a goal on you. They will do that. You know, we made it too hard on ourselves. I don't understand what's happening here. I mean, yes, 3 points, yes, clean sheet, but when you look at the way that we played it, I mean, can you imagine playing like that against Spurs in the Champions League, Hosni?
I don't want to imagine it. I don't want to. I don't want to wish any of those performances again. But you have to admit that throughout the course of the season, and it's happened to us before. These are the sort of games where you just need that one goal, those 3 points, and that will pull you through to what you want, to closer to where you want to be. And for us right now, because let's face it, yeah, we're out of the Scudetto race, but we've got to make top four. So every point is valuable, no matter how it is that you get them. But another thing, in addition to what you said, Shane, it's also about the players. So we actually had quite a little bit of a rotation. Origi was there up front, Messias, and I know some people now are also favoring Salmakers because Salmakers is quite good in terms of defense. But like you mentioned, yes, surprisingly, Messias scored the goal, and I think he also had one good defensive effort in the first half that helped in a way to keep that clean sheet. So could this formation, this 3-4-3, actually help to unlock the players? Because we've tried Messi as a right wing. More often than not, it's not really what we expected. We've seen a lot of Salad already on the right wing, and I'm a little bit more critical because Salamakers has been with us for much longer. That also has not been working. So keeping Diaz as a sort of a right wing and dropping back to lead to that either 3-4, 3, yeah, 3-4 1-2 or 3-4-2-1, however it is that we are in attack or in possession. It's a fresh of breath air, and I like the fact that they are now free roaming. But let's just point out some of the obvious. Right wing scores. Guess who's not there? Calabria. I'm really starting to see it. Is whereby when Calabria is not around, we seem to be playing a lot better, or you could say even more balanced. Is this coming back to a day whereby we not say a day because we haven't really seen it that much, but the number of Italians that are starting in our team, or that have first place, fixed, their own fixed positions in the team, is starting to dwindle. Calabria's not doing well. Povega, Pioli's not trying him. Tonali is the only guy there, and not everything can be put on Tonali's shoulder, especially if he's injured. We could be starting 11 of zero Italians. I mean, is that something that you would say is even worrying, or the longer that collaborates on the sidelines, I mean, the better it is for us?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what's very concerning for me is all the great Milan teams have always had a good solid backbone of Italian players. Because of Elliot and the way that they chose to conduct business, which was obviously going to maybe the lesser prestigious leagues and purchasing players from there. We no longer have there's not really much that we have in terms of an Italian starter, like you said, outside of Tonali. Um, it is slightly concerning. I'm hoping that kind of somehow kind of rectifies itself eventually with a couple of promotions from the youth team. That would be nice to see, or maybe when money is less tight, hashtag probably 2028 or whenever the stadium is built. Hopefully we can start kind of investing in serious Italian talent, because it's kind of like you said, it does. It's one thing I always liked about Milan, and I liked it about Italian football, is there was always an onus on developing homegrown talent for the teams. That's what separates it from the EPL. You can watch an EPL game and there isn't an English player on the pitch. So, I mean, what I'm really interested to see though is when Florenzi comes back, right? Because I'm interested to see how Florenzi acts in this position, because I think it's definitely it hoping that he hasn't destroyed himself with the injury, right? If he comes back with as the same player that he was, I think this formation would definitely suit him. So, and if it does suit him, I mean, do you sell Calabria? Because if
Can
you
we
have
tell them?
Salad and if
That's
you
not the
have,
question.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, you know, it's you wouldn't like to say it, but I mean, there could be a potential that Calabria is just being kept there because of his nationality at that point.
Nationality and homegrown. But you're right
And
about
homegrown, yeah.
Florenzi, and this is something that I haven't really thought about. Is that Florenzi, offensively, he's actually, in my opinion, better than Calabria, and defensively, a little bit better than Calabria. So this 3-4-3 would actually suit more of our players a lot more, I think. Which leads me to wonder is that why didn't we even think about this even sooner? Because the weaknesses that we saw in the past month, these aren't new, but somehow it's taken us this long to react. But then again, the fact that now, better late than ever. Now that we've collecting the points, we're scoring the goals, and we're keeping these clean sheets, I think it's a start of something that could actually take us to another run. And if we get that run, just like, and we're not, it's not like runs haven't happened to us in recent history. They have. We've gone on good runs before. We just need this good run to take us all the way until the end of the season, and next season we go at it again for the second star. But there's also another player that I wanted to ask you your opinion on, Shane. And this is a player that actually we thought we would miss greatly, but the fact that we kept 3 clean sheets and 3 wins in recent games, do you think Benacer, with we can imagine a future without Benacer? I know he's recently renewed, but the release clause is low. Someone might be able to pick it up next season. What do you think?
I can definitely see a future without him, but the thing is that, so let's say we get to June, or July, right? Whatever. So the transfer market opens, and next thing, a bid comes in from the EPL, and we choose it, right? So then what you're doing is in 2 seasons you've lost Kessie and you've lost Benacer, right? So you're going to have to replace 2 positions essentially, because I think they've noticed right now. I think the consensus is that they're not going to go and purchase Franks. So that's kind of that's gone with the wind, right? That's gone. Bakayoko, I mean, that was actually a crazy thing about the Monza game. I don't know what Hadley has done to Pioli, but obviously we still didn't see him. And it's looking likely, by all accounts, that Hadley is going to be sold now in the summer. And I don't know how they're going to get a capital gain for him, because the thing is, I think, what did they pay? Like 11 million?
Yeah, it's around the 10 million range, right? About there.
Something like that, right? So the thing is it's going to take some UVA level accounting to be able to get like a capital gain on him, because he hasn't played. So could we see a future without him? We could. But again, that means us, investing kind of shrewdly and smartly in players that can fill the position, and that means at least 2. So I mean, best case scenario is obviously, yeah, he stays. But I mean, geez, if he goes like this season, can you imagine? We're going to have to get like 2 centre midfielders, hope that the 2 of them don't work out. And even if the 2 of them work out, you're probably waiting 6 months or even potentially a year for them to actually show promise. So, yeah.
You brought
Can he
up
go? Yes. But should he go?
a good
No.
point about Bakayoko, and that was a surprise not only to us here on the stream, but also to a lot of fans out there. Because Bakayoko, everyone had it dead set that in January he would go. He didn't go, fine then. But he's a player on the out, if that's the correct term. Yeah, he's not going to be there for the long term. So you have a point there. What message is it sending is that the least favorite player in terms of the hierarchy gets minutes ahead of players that are, number one, young, number two, should have a good amount of potential, and number three, we paid a decent amount of money for, even though we don't have that much money to spend. So 10 million to a lot of clubs is nothing. Yeah. So 10 million, if you talk about Chelsea, this is just the loan fee for João Felix, maybe even less than that. But to us, it's a lot of money. We Maldini, he paid money for Adley and he loaned him back to Bordeaux for, you could say, just to help him develop. But when he comes to Milan, it seems like this kid is nobody. Is his name even on the squad list? I don't understand how can we call ourselves a project when we start to do things like this. We have young players, don't play them. Keep them on the bench 6 months. Keep them on the bench even though the other players aren't performing. I do not understand why we need to do this or how we go about developing our players when this is the sort of crap that we pull. Because it's been said, and this was one of the themes for the transfer window. A lot of players want to come to Milan because we develop players. But if anyone, agents, parents, whoever the hell, the players look at the way we do things, it's contrary to that. We buy players and we somehow take big dump on their career. And I'm not saying we. Maybe if I can pin this, it's on Pioli because his lineup, he decides who gets minutes, he decides the formation. So a lot of it is actually on his shoulders. Or is there
I
some
mean,
sort
look.
of misalignment between Maldini and Pioli? I don't know.
So look what's happened since Chow started playing. I mean,
Yeah,
he
but
started playing.
we needed those child performances last month, at the beginning of this year, even. Or you could even argue in December. But Pioli decided not ready. I don't understand this. In other
And the
teams,
thing is,
you get a good player, they stop tomorrow. With us,
that's it.
6 months.
And you're not telling me that Franks is a negative compared to Bakayoko. You're not telling me that he doesn't add something to the team that Bakayoko does. It's crazy. It's
No,
absolutely crazy. Like
at worst, you
it's
can't say anything because we've barely seen him play. This
yeah,
is the thing. You can't even say he's good or bad because we've barely seen him, and this is an issue.
yeah. It's a strange one, man. Because there's always the thing where it's like, well, look, Pioli's looking at him in training, and Pioli might see something he doesn't like. I appreciate that, But then, and it's like we said a couple of podcasts ago, you have that type of player after 6 months. So if you do, loan him out. Now, obviously, we can't do it with the likes of Ranks, but the likes of Adley, we could. I mean, we could have loaned him out, send him to Sampdoria, send him to Monza, send him to the Serie A where he's getting minutes and learning how the league works. Instead of that, he's been kept on the bench. I've no idea how we're going to get a capital gain for him. It just makes no sense. We'll probably let him go for at best the same price. So it's been a failure on his part, and it's been a failure on management's part, really. And it's a shame it hasn't worked out. Franks, from the bit I've seen of him, doesn't make me any like doesn't nothing I've seen tells me that he's less effective in the middle of the park than Bakayoko is.
You're right. And let me point out some things about Franks. Yeah. So Franks, he's young. Number one. Number two, he's got he's a big kid, by the way. Yeah? He's not a Benacer size. He's a big kid. He's physical. I thought there's a little bit of Cassie in him in the game in the minutes that he actually played. So that
This
to
is
me definitely gives
exactly
me
it.
credit.
And
Yeah.
people are crying out for Kessie, and I'm saying we have a unit. We have a unit that could be just ready to go. He just needs to play. you know?
Doesn't make sense. Well, anyway, yeah. Other than the misgivings on purely on what he did, but credit to him as well. He made the choices. 1-0. His job is done. But today's job, this is a different story. So this is actual lineup, with the expected lineup for the game later tonight. So the highlight: Magic Mike is back. We got the same three backline from the previous games. Messias seems to have somehow kept his spot. And yeah, the rest of the team pretty much the same. Is there anything there, Shane, that we should be worried about? And the big name, of course, the Mike is back, and we named this podcast title after him. What are you expecting, and should we be excited? Because Atlanta's going to be tough. They lost their previous game. They're out for blood. They need points as much as we do.
I can't. Yeah. So dealing with this Atlanta it's slightly different. It's slightly different dealing with this Atlanta compared to the way it was, let's say, 2 years ago or so, right? 3 years ago. But that being said, though, I don't. I know Messi has scored in the last game, and this is going to sound really harsh. But I don't think Messias is the guy for this game. Unless Salamakers, sorry, Salad, unless Salamakers is unfit, it doesn't make sense to me to play Messias because he can be a bit like slow to come back, and help out on the defensive side. And I think we're going to need that a bit more at Atlanta. So outside of that, though, which we'll cover again a bit later, I mean, Moynihan is back. This is great. It's like we actually, we did sign someone in January, and it's great. And now Pioli sees he's ready. So yeah, it's going to be a huge positive having him back. It's going to be interesting to see how he works with Chow, because obviously that's still a relatively new pairing there, right? But it's going to add a lot of confidence, and it could be the boost that we need, So looking forward to it. Again, the only problem, what I don't want to see is I think I've been reviewing the last couple of games, and so where Origi is played, eh, while he has gotten some great goals, he hasn't done enough for me to warrant his salary remaining at the club.
Okay, let me play the devil's advocate on that one. So we're willing to give players like CDK time, a good amount of time. And you could argue that even Messias has been given quite a bit of time. Why not Origi? He scored, by the way. Yeah, he has 2 goals to his name. And I
He
think
does. No,
yeah.
he does. He does. But the thing is I suppose a bit of it comes with expectation. So the expectation, and I know CDK did cost a lot of money, right? But the expectation is he's still a kid. He's going to have to grow into it. And I think Milan fans in general have been quite good in terms of, they're being patient with him. Messias, so therefore the expectation wasn't, even though the price tag was high, the expectation didn't really, take off so much. Messias, same thing. There was kind of zero expectation, and any bit he does on the pitch is it's accepted, and people are thankful for it, which is good. Because he does chip in with the odd goal here or there. But with Origi, I think it was a bit of a gamble, but there was also a higher expectation because he's a player that should be in the prime of his career.
Yeah, you're right.
Like this should be the top of his career, right? Whereas even you could say with Messi, yes, I mean, what is he, 31, 32, something like that?
Yeah, definitely above 30.
So, you know, so, and obviously he was a late bloomer. So, I mean, you could argue that, his peak is, this is his peak. He's literally trailing off of it, which is, I think, why we should sell him this summer. Messi, yes. Um, Origi, though, so he's at his peak of his career. He's played in the EPL. He's shown that he can score very important goals in very
He's a
important
Champions League
games.
winner. Come on, give him a little more credit than that.
Oh no, I am, but you see,
Yeah.
all of that is what tells me that it's like we're so. If we were a club that we could afford, to have players that we could potentially bring on for a special occasion, that we needed to get a goal, and he was our clutch guy. I mean, bring him on. This is great. But the thing is, you know, his he, look at it this way: he's kind of taking what would potentially be half of Leao's salary,
Okay.
and it just makes no sense for the 4 million that we're getting between the long running injuries and everything else that I see in terms of his build up play. His build up play isn't great. He doesn't seem to add an awful lot to that side of things either. It doesn't make sense that we keep him on, not for the 4 million salary, just from that pure perspective. If it was a situation where we had far more money and we were okay to give Origi a bit of extra time, to maybe try and adjust and to try and become something, that's great. But in terms of us getting him for free, we could potentially flip him for a couple of million to another club. It just makes sense for me to sell him. So it doesn't make sense to keep him. What do you
Okay.
think though?
Well, I think Origi has his place in the club. So I was observing him, quite closely during the game against Monza. Origi's characteristics is something that we don't have many players in the team who can do what he does. Well, he's physical. He runs forward, so he's not quick to do the back pass. Granted, he doesn't have that hold-up play which we expect of Giroud and Zlatan. But hold-up play, in my opinion, is something that you can learn. But having that physical player, and I don't want to compare him to his other countrymen, but Inter has Lukaku, who used to do that quite well. I know that he's a bit washed up now, but having that sort of player, I think is useful because who else do we have there? And look at our lineup for later tonight. We have Diaz. Diaz is not a physical player. He's going to get pushed off the ball. He's going to get bullied. But one of the things that Diaz has done very well in the recent games is that he's able to find space, take the ball, control it, turn around, and quickly run into that space. This is something that we don't really have much players thinking like that. And credit to Diaz. And I think this is why we have a lot of discussions about trying to work out a deal with Real Madrid for Diaz, because starting to see his qualities. But like you've mentioned, we're playing those players, and my concern is that are we now becoming too predictable? Because this lineup is almost the same as last game, and Pioli's always spoken about not having the point of reference. But if you keep playing the same players, and you probably know what these players are going to do, then you become all the more predictable, regardless whether it's a relatively new formation. There was only three of them up front. Liao, all you need is two players to get one in front of him, one beside him, and he's passing back. Diaz, just a nudge on the shoulder, and he's probably going to topple over. Giroud is not going to break anyone for pace. So you're going to have to need that, that wild card up there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. But yeah, so everything's good.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. So in the Christian faith, obviously Good Friday is a celebration of Jesus after he was crucified, he came back from the dead, right? And I think it's fitting that Magic Mike is kind of coming back from the dead around this time of year as well. So it's great. It's you know,
Okay.
it's
I'll
like
ask you this, and since you touched upon it,
mm,
Mike is coming back later tonight, and I think the fact that he's back, and God forbid that he is not injured or something else stupid that doesn't happen to him. how will you actually evaluate Tata Rushanu's performance since Mike was away? And let's be objective about this because yes, we've been through the dips, but now we're on a bit of a high. What do you think? Was he
I
really as bad as everyone else made him out to be?
So funny enough, I think in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 games, not necessarily the ones that even coincided with the clean sheet,
Hmm.
but even the 1 or 2 games before that, I think Tatarishanu kind of learned what's required of the goalkeeper role at Milan, and he was actually executing it fairly well. I
Yep.
like, he was being more vocal. He was coming out. He was punching balls. He's been saving potential goals with his ass cheek. I mean, this is great. Like, so it's kind of ironic, really, because I would like to think that me at 40 years old, which I'm not yet, but I would like to think me at 40 in a career or in a job that I've been playing since what, my early teens, probably.
Hmm.
I would like to think that it would not take me as long to realize what is needed for me to do to be effective at the club or in the role that I'm in. And it's a shame that it's taken Tata as long as he has, because I mean, if Tata was playing the way he has in the last couple of games, 99% of people's criticisms are completely invalid.
Yep.
Because he's commandeering the box, he's coming out for balls, he's trying to be proactive. You know, I know his passing is still limited and it's still shit, but again, he's a backup keeper, right? But in terms of what he's displayed in the last couple of games, I think people can't be hard on him. I think he deserves a bit of respect. But again, it's a shame that 6 months before you retire, you finally figure out what's needed of you. Really, it sucks.
Yep. You're right. And I just want to add on top of that, and I fully agree with what you're saying. For me, when I analyze the goals that we've conceded, especially during this downturn in January, early February, I would say majority of those goals. I mean, there are goals attributed to Tata. I would have to say that, but the vast majority of goals are actually not his fault. So even if you were to put Mike in those situations, yeah, of course we expect a lot more from Mike. But you wouldn't blame Mike if those goals had actually gone in, because
No, and this is the great, and you're 100% correct. And
yeah,
this is what tends to confuse me a bit. So your goalie, he's like, look, he's the last man, right? Now the thing is Milan playing this year, and Milan playing, let's say, in the games where we're conceding, a heavy amount of goals. Even if you had Maignan in goal, it's still going to be the same result. He might have saved 1 or 2. So what? So we only lose to Lazio 2-0. So what? We only lose to Lazio 3-2, or to Sassuolo 3-2, right? But the thing is, people have this kind of, blinkered view, right? Where they kind of, it's very easy to blame Tatarusanu for everything, but they're not blaming the likes of Teo, who basically gave the ball away at one point and then just couldn't be arsed running back. They're not blaming Calabria because he's halfway up the pitch doing God knows what. And then, there's a load of space for Inter to pass the ball into and then run and get a goal. You know, like, it's a group effort, and it's just very lazy to be able to blame Tatarishanu for everything. It's just very lazy, and I think, especially the last couple of games, I think he deserves a good bit of respect, because he's won a bit of respect back in my book, definitely. But again, very lazy just to blame Tatarishanu. I think, if anything, who deserves more blame here is, and I'm not a fan, is Calabria.
yeah.
Calabria should be at the peak of his career. He knows what he needs to do, and he's not executing it.
For a captain, I mean, we have to be harsh on Calabria because not only is he just another player in our squad, he's also team captain. So people should, especially this, well, he's not that old, but there are younger players should actually look up to him because he's the one who's in the dressing room that I hope is leading the discussions in terms of motivating the team, trying to get everyone all pumped up, and it can't be just like, oh, I'm captain, but then all the talking I'll just leave it to Pioli and Zlatan to do it. because a captain really has to be that guy. And of course, I hate to say it now, is that I think Romagnoli, from what I've seen of his interviews and how he actually carries himself, I think he's a lot more of that leader in the dressing room. Even though he's not Zlatan level, but Romagnoli, he was captain, and yeah, he did have that captain in him. That's why I think he was selected. But Calabria, if you make those sort of mistakes and you're the captain, I mean, it just sends the wrong message. You can't be making those sort of mistakes, and especially against, I think it was against Lazio. He did a rugby tackle. Like, what the fuck, Calabria?
Yeah, like
You lost your man, and
it's
you want to do that?
and it's I know we discussed this a couple of pods ago, Husney, right? But I think that there has to be a point, especially when you're coming out of a banter era, or when we're out of a banter era like we are. There has to be a point where you can no longer go with the idea of giving the captaincy to someone just based on the amount of appearances. Because what you have coming out of banter eras is you still have, potentially very average players left over that are now club captain just because they've been there during the banter era, which is fine. But the thing is when you're with a club through the banter era, for the most part, it's because you couldn't get a better offer to go anywhere else.
You are
So
so right.
there's nothing that I see with Calabria that one tells me that you need leadership skills. You can develop them, right? You can. But the thing is you can't beat natural leadership skills. And this is a very strange thing to say, right? But I think in terms of fire and intensity and guts, right? I think there's two choices for me, right? And I'll give them in order of my preference. Actually, it's three. So I think there's Moynihan, who I think should be
Agreed.
number one for me because he's intense. He expects everyone to put a good work shift in. He's my number one. I think my number two would probably be Tonali.
Okay,
Problem
agreed.
is Tonali's still at the age where he does run into problems with consistency. So as a captain, you can't be inconsistent. That's my problem
You
with
can't be a
Tonali.
Calabria. Yeah, right.
Right. And my third pick then would see it's a mix. So it could either be Benacer, but he's very quiet. He's intense, but he's a quiet player, or potentially Teo. The problem is if it goes to Teo, as great as Teo is, again, he can get lazy sometimes. And this kind of throwing himself on the ground isn't the way that I want to see a captain of AC Milan conduct themselves, right? But I just think there's far better options there in terms of leadership and given someone that respects like to have the team respect that player. I mean, geez, can we not just give it to Moynihan already? Hopefully, if he stays fit, let's say he stays fit for the next year, let's just give it to Moynihan because I mean he's everything that this club needs in a captain and he deserves it.
Okay, well, I hear you. But there's one player that you mentioned that I want to speak a little bit about, and that's actually Theo. So Theo, even though he's a left back, okay, now that he's been turned into a left mid or left wing back, however you want to call him, he's been known as a prolific goal scorer from defense because he's quick. He makes those incisive runs and is able to be somewhat clinical. How would you actually rate his performance in the past 3 or 4 games? Because some of his moves have led to goals, even though he hasn't scored them. But what he did was help set those chances up. But then again, what we saw in the previous game, whereby he couldn't chip the keeper, as if he just came out of the Primavera as a left back, that would have, saved us a lot of suspense if that had went in. That shocked me quite a bit. But how do you actually rate his performance in recent games? Because it's after the World Cup, and some people were saying that he's tired. But yeah, it seems that he's picked it up a little bit. Do you agree?
I think so. I think so. The thing is with Teo, right? Is I think this, and remember I said this a couple of pods ago, where it's like the change, this formation change. Forget the clean sheet aspect of the game, but it suits a lot of our players, this formation, right? like it suits a lot of our players. Like when you have Salamakers who's showing up and being consistent, like you know, that means that position suits him. When you have Teo, right, who it's easier for Teo now to go and make a run because he's that bit further up the pitch. He's just he's positioned further up the pitch, so it suits Teo.
Mm.
The midfield is more compact. It's great. It's great. Now it mightn't suit our forward line, so maybe Teo, Giroud, Diaz, they might disagree. But in terms of us getting back to actually figuring out, okay, so this is how we win dirty, and this is how we be clinical. This formation works. In terms of people complaining, let's say maybe, being negative on Teo's attacking side. So yes, I can understand. It's like, look, he does the hard part, right? He does the hard part of getting into the box, and then he fluffs it or he makes a mistake. Name, I cannot, in good faith, tell you that many other left backs worldwide that can basically get the ball from midfield or from the defensive half and then run into the box and be as dangerous as Teo is in the amount of time that Teo does it, and he consistently does it. So in terms of him missing, maybe not, his finishing might maybe off. For me, it's like, right, fine. Yes, it'd be nice if he scored, but the thing is that he's still getting the chances, which is good, and he will eventually start slotting them away, which is because, as we've seen, he has done in the past. So I'd never be too critical on him, because it's kind of like me. That would like me being, let's say, critical of Calabria because he's not a goal threat for the most part. It's like, well, it's not his job. It's not his primary job. His primary job is to sit there. And I know Teo does, he might be a bit of a victim of his own success because he was so good, especially over the last couple of seasons. But I'm convinced it's just it's a World Cup hangover. He just needs to get rid of the mental fatigue. As soon as he does, he's going to show everyone why he's probably at least in the top 3 of the best left backs in world football.
All right. Well, agree with you there. But yeah, Theo, whenever he starts in the team, and of course, especially when he's fully fit, it's better to always have him starting. Yeah, always have him in the team rather than out of the team because the alternatives, not I wouldn't say are not even great. Alternatives will cost us because we still have Balotore, and I know Balotore is back, hasn't got a game yet. But if we have to start Balotore, then I think there's a lot more things to worry about. But we just have not seen enough of Balotore.
Did you hear so once upon a time, a couple of years ago,
yeah,
there was a player called Carquez, right?
Not too long ago.
So Milan sold him for a very small, not too long ago. So Milan sold him. He's went and he's teared it up. I think he's in the Eredivisie.
Yeah.
Eindhoven,
I think. That's fine.
Yeah. So he's gone and he's completely tore it up and he's playing well.
Alkmaar, sorry, yes.
So obviously, the Milan Alkmaar, AZ Alkmaar, right?
Yeah.
So he's gone and he's tore it up. So obviously, the PlayStation FIFA generation of Milan fans have basically now turned around and they're kind of saying, well, why can't we sign Carquez again? It's like, you do realize that the reason he left is because he was behind Teo in the pecking order and he wanted to play. So even if you sign him now, he's still not going to play. So he's not going to come back to the club. But that being said, yeah, we need some sort of a. Ironically, I think what would work quite well is it Parisi, that left back, the Italian? Yeah. So
forget about it, man. The reason why I keep saying it is that every time we ask for any Italian players, the price seems to triple upon asking. So I don't think it's realistic. But yeah, sorry, you're right.
But I think we need someone that has experience, someone that's that bit older. I think it's kind of like the difference between, let's say, it's not a great example because Salamakers isn't a complete, he's not a right back. He's like a right wing back. But let's just say that kind of the difference between, let's say, Salamakers and Florenzi. it
Mhm.
works well and it makes sense in the context of right. So if you're having a difficult game, Salamakers hasn't been able to break them down, or we keep on getting long balls sent over Salamakers. You send on Florenzi because Florenzi, he'll hopefully have the experience to be able to deal with the situation. So for me, it's if we got someone that was older. Yes, I know the wage increase, or to be a higher, high wage there, but like there can't be a decrease in quality that's as severe from when we take off Hernandez and then we look to replace him with Balotore, who has neither the skills or the experience. So I'm hoping, with this new round of, let's say, investments, assuming we get them, we can't just be replacing the likes of Teo with a 19-year-old and hoping that it all works fine, because it doesn't make sense. You still need experience in a team.
Yeah, but just on that point, any player that we would like to get has to accept the fact that he won't be starting as many games as maybe you want. So this then leads to an issue whereby you only get a young player because that's how our project is leaning towards. But young players, they want to play, and when they know they got Theo in front of them, it's not sinking. You know what I mean? So how many players out there that really want to get into a national team or want to do well, want to play Champions League? How many of them are willing to accept a secondary role? Balotore, regardless of how he is as a player, I don't think he's the type that has ambition to say that I want to start. He's always pressuring, going to Pioli's office saying that I want to start this game, play me, play me. Of course, he's happy if Pioli does, but you know, it's a difficult choice because not you won't easily find a good player that is willing to accept being second. I mean, look at the case of Rebic. So there was a battle between Liao and Rebic over before Liao became what he is today, and Rebic was actually favored in the beginning, and Liao was trying to get there, and to Rebic's misfortune, he got injured, and we started to see more and more of Liao until Liao managed to develop. But could you say that another Rebic type player, but on the left back position, would he react in the same way and say that okay, I'll try to keep my mouth shut, or he's going to create a ruckus? Because Kerkes, and I think the reason why we were so quick to sell him because Maldini probably saw him on that point. This kid is just going to be a problem because he's just not getting what he wants. So if you say a name like Parisi, honestly, do you think that he's the one for us, considering all these factors, especially with Theo?
It's a fair point, because because you are bringing in someone that's a backup. It is a tough one. You see, the only thing why I was kind of mentioning, okay, forgetting Parisi, but like let's say if we go for someone that's around the 30, 31, something like that. So the
Hmm.
reason why I'm saying that age is, let's say you have a player who's relatively content to be sitting on the subs bench, but if you bring him on in the 60th or 70th minute to close the game out, they'll do that and they'll do that job well. That's kind of more that'd be the ideal characteristic. Um, I mean, I mean, Florenzi was the same type of player essentially, wasn't he? Like when you look at it this way. So I mean, Roma sent him out on loan.
Yeah.
Then when he came back, he wasn't getting games, so he's used to being not being a starter essentially. But the thing is there's got to be other experienced left backs out there that'd be willing to come to the club with the expectation that you are here to be the cool, balanced, experienced head on the left wing. That so if Hernandez is close to getting his second yellow card, we can take him off and put you on, right?
Yeah.
So that they have to be out there, because you're not telling me even in the Serie A, you're not telling me that there's not a left back there that would say, I would gladly come to Milan even if it cuts my playing time, because I'll get to play in the Champions League.
Not many, or they're going to say that. No? And this is where it becomes more, I guess, a tricky discussion with Maldini.
Mm,
If they're not going to play, they want to say, "Oh, you got to make it worth my while then," because
that's
as
true.
we know, Italian players, a lot of them actually lack ambition. I don't know whether you agree with me on this point, but I believe they lack ambition because you
I,
got
th-
players
I
like
I don't
Berardi
think it's
who renew their
was
contract, and
that.
he's playing mid-table team.
I don't think it's the players lack ambition. I think it's the overall league lacks ambition.
Okay.
So I think let's look at the league, right? So as opposed to the players, I think any player. So players and ambition, right? So they'll all they can't all be like the likes of Ibra, who probably still have a six pack and crazy abs until he's like 65. You know, because he's a driven individual. Some players are just different, right? But I think when you look at how badly the Serie A kind of markets itself, when you look at these kind of screw ups that they've done, trying to combat racism by showing a monkey eating a banana, you know, like how in not it forget morality, right? Because it morality should come in if you have the intelligence to execute and understand it, right? So how stupid, right, would someone be to do that, right? So if you're playing in a league that does that, you're kind of going, "This is a joke," um, and I think that kind of filters down, So I think overall the Serie A needs to seriously, it needs to grow up. It needs new people running it because obviously whatever the hell they're doing, it's just not working. And forget this European,
Super League.
the European Championship. No,
Okay.
the champion, the Euros that
Okay.
Italy won,
Yeah.
right? I mean, fair enough. Yes, they won that, right? But like, I mean, can the Italian league really stand up for itself and say, yeah, 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 we're really doing well. Our homegrown football is going well. Because I mean, when was the last time they qualified for the World Cup?
Yeah. Two World
You
Cups
know,
in a row, and especially to
so
a country like Italy, that's embarrassing because they are win.
should be
They were winners.
should be ashamed of themselves. So
Yeah.
like, and in terms of then you're playing in that, you know, uh, and I think saying that Italian players don't have ambition is kind of like saying football players don't have ambition. Of course they do. It just depends on the person as how they execute it. I just think that an awful lot of this though is it's down to the Italian league, at board level being a complete farce and a bunch of morons. So you know,
Okay. Well, there's
yeah,
one thing that I wanted to ask you about the who stepped it up. Then, if the league is not stepping up, and that maybe our design department. So what we have here is actually the fourth jersey that we'll see later in the game today. This is in collaboration with collaboration, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Coach is a French brand, I think.
mm.
So yeah, second year running of their stuff. And what are your thoughts on this jersey? So there's actually two colors. One is the goalkeeper, which is, let's say, a golden beige, and then there is the red and black in a digital camo sort of design. Are you digging it? I see in the chat
I
that
like
there's
it.
actually quite a few fans of
I
this.
think it's kind of like I don't know, Hosni, are you familiar with Marmite? It's this stuff that you can like put
Yeah,
in
yeah.
tea. It's like you either love it or you hate it, right?
I
There's
love
no
it, by
like
the
in
way.
between. Yeah, right. I don't know. I don't know. I've not tried it, so I'll have to try it to see if I love it or I hate it.
Oh,
Marmite.
you haven't tried it? Okay, it's
But
great.
with this one, I th- I th- I think especially with the I think especially with the kind of matrix effect on it, I think people are kind of split, but I really like it. Like I like it so much that I contemplated spending the $140,
Well, there's
whatever the
two
heck it
versions, by the way.
was,
There's a
to
replica
actually
and
go
there's
and,
an
and
authentic.
buy it. I think we're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Might be on mute. Yeah.
How about now? Can you hear me?
No.
No, you can
It's
hear me.
either me.
Oh, maybe it's on your side, Sheena. I think I'm coming through.
No.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
No, you can't hear me. How about now? I think it's your
Mute.
sound change.
Nope. 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 But just while you're fixing the audio there. So yeah, I think it's kind of it's love or hate it, but for me, I really really enjoy the Matrix Effect jersey. I think it's cool. Adds another dimension. It was like that, cool jersey where we had like you had the home red and black stripes here, and then you had the rest of it white last year. That was really cool. Which reminds me, that's another thing I have to buy.
Wait, can you hear me now, Shane? Is it clear? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No,
Okay.
can't
Well,
hear you, dude. Yeah, I
I
think the tech gods are against us today.
yeah. Yeah. Well, sorry for those listening. I think we're having a bit of a technical difficulty.
So everyone, this is the face of Hosni now, very stressed because he's trying to fix his audio issues. And he's going, right, what's going on?
I'm trying, but yeah. Oh, my take on it is
But,
that yeah, my take on it.
yeah, so just while Hosni's working through that, so outside of the new jerseys as well, please make sure, guys, that it's always nice to hear from you guys. So always comment in the video if you come across it. Let us know what kind of content you'd like to see. Interact with us on Twitter as well. So at Milanistas360, we're kind of we're always active there. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Spotify as well. So Milanistas360 there. I was looking to bring kind of new, differing content. So, always good to interact with you guys. Just want to try and make the channel bigger. Want to try and get people, involved. And as well, if you're based around potentially the Nairobi area in Kenya, which is where I am, and you have good internet, reach out to us because we'd like to actually have you on. And you're a Milan fan, obviously. No Juventus fans allowed. Yeah, I'd like to have you on for a chat. Maybe do some hosting with us. Looking to try and get a Milan fan club sort set up here so I can actually watch the games somewhere that isn't my living room. So.
Okay, for those who
Oh, hold on. I think I might be getting a message from my co-host here, Hosni. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry, it's he can't hear me.
Okay, yeah. So that's the end of this pod. I think, guys, tech gods have gotten us. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in, for watching. It means the world to us. Let's regather after this hopeful Atalanta 3 points. Love you all, respect you, and see you next week. Italia!